Let's start with this. This is all happening at the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS.
The BIS, as it was known, would be the central bank to Europe's national banks.
This BIS crowd, Bank of International Settlements, it's a central bank for central bankers.
The international banking cartel that controls the central banks operates under the rules set by an international body called the Bank for International Settlements.
It keeps its head low. It's owned by the same families.
Well, I always say the BIS is the most important bank in the world that you've almost certainly never heard of. It's the bank for central banks. It's the banks where they do their banking.
The Bank for International Settlements is often referred to as the Bank for Central Banks. Shrouded in mystery and power, with an agenda to take full control of your money through one unified ledger and a CBDC globally, there has never been a better time to understand who this entity is and how you can protect yourself. Hi everyone, I'm Taylor Kenny with ITM Trading. The Bank for International Settlements, or BIS for short, is the most powerful bank that you've never heard of. Or, if you are familiar with them, it's probably still difficult to explain who they are and what they do, given their unique standing and power, which is one of the main reasons why their new monetary agenda is so concerning for you and I. Founded in 1930 and located in Basel, Switzerland, it is one of the oldest financial institutions predating the IMF and the World Bank. Originally created as a temporary institution set up for reparations payments from World War I, the BIS was focused just on Europe, but that has changed. Now the BIS is at the center of the global banking system, representing 95% of the world's GDP. Their headquarters are the main meeting point for central bankers all over the world to decide global monetary policy, supposedly in pursuit of financial stability, but there's still much secrecy over how they operate and what exactly they do. These meeting minutes aren't released, and the BIS gets to choose exactly what records and statements are released to the public.
The secrecy of the place. Every 2 months, the 60 central bankers, the most leading central bankers of the world, such as Ben Bernanke and Mervyn King and Mario Draghi, meet there to talk about monetary policy and the global financial system. But we don't know anything about those meetings. They don't release any information about them. We don't have an attendance list. We don't know what themes are discussed.
Part of the reason that there's such limited accountability and transparency is that it was created by an international treaty. This treaty essentially makes the BIS untouchable. It is exempt from the law. When it was created to be legally inviolable for central bankers. Similar to the International Monetary Fund or diplomatic embassy, its assets can never be seized because it's outside of the jurisdiction of local law. The agreement between the BIS and the Swiss Federal Council is a public document, and in that document, it grants the BIS absolute freedom to do whatever it would like. It even goes so far as to say that Swiss authorities are not allowed on the property under any circumstances without consent of the BIS first. The BIS works closely with the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, and was actually the first non-member institution to be allowed to hold special drawing rights, or SDRs, and has received SDR deposits from the IMF. They use these SDRs as their reserve currency. The BIS influences policy, but it also acts as its own bank, holding 10 to 15% of all central banks' monetary reserves. There is still much debate over what the BIS is. Half international organization, half banking institution, it acts and operates as if it's a bank, but it enjoys the freedoms and powers of an intergovernmental organization, even though its members are central banks, not governments. So what is the BIS focused on now, and how does it impact you? Well, there are many ways that their influence impacts you, but one of the biggest ones is their current agenda to change monetary policy for a global token or global CBDC. And not just any CBDC, but one CBDC to rule them all. But wait, there's more. The BIS has released a blueprint which outlines their vision for a future monetary system called Improving the Old, Enabling the New. In this blueprint, they outline all types of goals and initiatives, all under the guise of progress and improvement. There is a lot of hypocrisy here, but let's dive on in. The blueprint itself starts out by talking about the promise and potential of a tokenized currency. That being said, the BIS's general manager, Augustin Carstens, has been quoted before as saying that technology does not make for trusted money.
Technology doesn't make for trusted money.
Well, how does that work? Well, it only applies to crypto or money and technology outside of their system. Carstens goes on to say, and I quote, "Only the legal, historical infrastructure behind central banks can give great credibility to money." There it is. Why would I ever trust a decentralized token or a precious metal that's had value for thousands of years when instead I could simply trust the central banks? So it's essential in their plan moving forward, whatever that path looks like, that central banks be at the core of that system. And they continue to say this throughout the blueprint. So how are they going to create this new monetary path? Well, their proposal is a token that is on a single unified ledger. They claim that the economy is too siloed, and if there was one programmable unified ledger that would bring everyone together, we would have a much better system in place. This, of course, would be fully owned and operated by the BIS, the central bank of the central banks. This, of course, raises two immediate concerns. The first being surveillance. We're all familiar with this from CBDCs, but essentially, if there's one unified ledger, nothing you do would be secret. Everything would be out there for anyone to see. Who knows where your data would be going? Who would have access to your transactions? Forget what would come next. The second part being that with this global token or CBDC, it would be completely owned, operated, and the rules around it would be created by the BIS, this mysterious global entity who has legal immunity and no oversight. And they're not even making a secret out of it. The BIS has stated on record that they would have absolute technological control of your spending.
A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also we will have the technology to enforce that.
Their end goal is to have a singleness of money. That makes me laugh, a singleness, because you know what is a singleness of money? Gold. But there's a reason that they're not interested in gold, and it's because they can't control it. So when will all of this come to fruition? I don't know. But what we do know is that in June of this year, the BIS announced that they were 80% complete with their 5-year plan. This 5-year plan focused heavily on technological improvements and changes in governance. So knowing this, what can you do to protect yourself? And that's the tricky part, because honestly, there is not much you or I can do about the BIS. But we know knowledge is power. So it is important to continue to spread this message so that people can continue to be educated and learn and grow together. Anything you own that they can't control is a threat. I personally have made it a goal of mine to make sure that any assets I have are protected outside of the system, outside of the BIS's reach, in a way that they can't control it. If you haven't already, I highly suggest clicking on the link below, getting a strategy in place, and making sure you're set up for your goals today. As always, I'm Taylor Kenny with ITM Trading. Thank you so much. Until next time.